Hello and welcome. I am a storyteller. This is the World of Atlantica, a world-building project for tabletop RPGs, multiple systems in fact, Pathfinder, 2nd Edition, Old School Essentials, and others, including Dungeons & Dragons if they ever got their act back together. Regardless, in today's episode, we're going to be talking about the 5 most important principles when designing maps for your tabletop RPG. If you use these 5 tips, you'll be designing a great campaign aid. To do this, we're going to be using a couple of the maps made by the artist Travis Wiest, who does the art for the World of Atlantica. And we're going to be using the maps of the Nachtforêt, which is a dark and dangerous forest. In the World of Atlantica, it is on the island of Calamar, the largest of the 4 Isles of Icaria. And anyway, deep in the Nachtforêt is a kingdom of barbarous gnomes near the headwaters of an important river of Calamar, just so you know what you're looking at, I guess. Regardless, number 1. This might seem basic to some people, but your map needs A, a compass, B, a scale, and C, a name. As far as the compass goes, just an arrow facing north works great. The scale, if you're on a traditional 5-foot square hex map or an exploration hex with the traditional 6-mile hex, maybe you don't need it, but even with those, you still might want to add it in, depending on your player's experience. But regardless, on something besides that, just a line marking how far, either like a mile or 100 miles or anything like that. But you've got to give your players a sense of scale and a sense of direction. That's very important. And as far as the name, well, you want to add some flavor to your game, but you never want to give your players just like expositions by talking to them or just in text. But a cool name, the Kingdom of the Nachtforêt Gnomes, or the Hidden Druid Grove in the Nachtforêt, that gives your players just enough of the flavor of your game to kind of know what's going on, where they are, even if they don't know more than just that hint. And if they do want more information, they can ask, and I suggest you tell them that information in the form of an NPC encounter. With that said, number 2, you're going to need a good starting location, maybe even 2. I wouldn't start most parties in the Nachtforêt specifically, but if I did, say if a party contained 1 or more Nachtforêt gnomes in it, I would give them a starting location. This might sound trivial, again, but really, what point is there of making a map if you don't give the PCs a place to start in? If the Kingdom of the Nachtforêt, in the Kingdom of the Nachtforêt Gnomes, there are 2 towns on the waterway, East Rhine and West Rhine. Both are gnome towns, mind you, and exist both on, in, and under a few large trees near the water, but either could serve as a location for a starting spot, albeit one that for normal-sized characters might be a little uncomfortable. Which, since every adventure needs a starting spot, that's going to be critical. And number 3, a good starting location is one thing, but the real meat and potatoes of a map is that it contains a dangerous dungeon. Of course, all maps might in fact even have multiple dungeons and other dangerous locations, but your map should have at least one that's well known and dangerous. A place that calls to adventurers and contains rumors of treasures. In our case, the dungeon nearby is called the Hole in the Oak. That's because it is an adventure put out by Necrotic Gnome, the makers of Old School Essentials, with a modification to the gnomes to make them the Nachtforêt gnomes in the text of the adventure. Number 4, your map needs to be connected to a wider world. It doesn't all need to be defined, but check this out. The Nachtforêt gnomes are allied with an ancient elf druid who lives secretly in the swamp to the north. And as you can see, these two hex maps connect to each other. The forest itself exists on Calamar, this large island here. And you can see from this, from the map of the Isles of Icaria, there's clearly a world beyond that. Where does this big sea in the southeast lead to? What the heck is that purplish ocean? It's called the Mar. It's a magical sea of energy that exists in the world of Atlantica. You don't need to create all of your world, but you should start with, I suggest, 2 maps. One, a 3 hex map for a local starting location, complete with a dungeon or 2 large enough, maybe even a dungeon large enough that an entire campaign could take place just in that single location. But 2, a larger map of a greater kingdom, continent, etc. Maybe not the whole world, but a region large enough that it would be difficult for the PCs to travel beyond it, at least in a single game session, of course, teleportation aside. But it's large enough to excite their imagination, to go to some of these magical places that you populate your world with. Now, at any rate, you can keep building your campaign from those 2 maps as it progresses, as you need to, but when you start it, there's no need for more. And like I said, a whole campaign could easily exist within a 3 hex map if it contained just a few large dungeons to explore. Number 5. Okay, every map should really be 2 maps. That's what the hint is. Because a copy for your players is going to have everything we've talked about so far. But you should also have a secret Game Master copy that's going to contain at least 1 additional piece of information. A random encounter chart specific to that location. This might not be necessary on the continental level. Like I wouldn't make a continental sized random encounter chart, but at least not for monsters. Maybe just for humanoids and stuff. But regardless, on the hex level, this is going to be very important. Not only does this give you a short list of random encounters that your players could encounter, but it also lets them perhaps place additional markers on their maps for later. It's because some of the random encounters have a chance of being in a lair. Now, what that chance is up to you or the game system you're playing. Like in Old School Essentials, I'm pretty sure it's a flat 30% chance. But regardless, this means that the random encounters your players chance upon can help flesh out your world. Now, if you have a party of level 1 PCs and they encounter an ogre in its lair and you find it, there's multiple ogres in this lair, or they track one to its lair and they discover it's got friends, they might have an adventure for later. They're not going to want to take out maybe even 1 ogre, let alone multiple. And that they could try or succeed in taking it right then and there. But if they plan for later to come back after they've gained more experience and a level or 2, and then tackle the threat of an ogre lair, that would almost definitely contain some treasure for them. And you can also base an adventure after that later, once they know where the ogre lair is. If later you need a new adventure in a shorter adventure in your game world in that same location, maybe those ogres have started to kidnap and eat people or something like that, and it becomes more necessary for your players to take it out even. Well, anyway, those are the 5 principles to making a better tabletop RPG map. And if you want free copy of any of these maps for your game, or any of the free-to-use classes, monsters, NPCs, or other maps for your game, then all you've got to do is check out the World of Atlantica Discord channel linked below. And of course, please like and subscribe for more content like this. Until next time, peace.